Alright, so if you haven't figured it out yet, I am an idiot. I said at the end of last video that the next video of this series would be a playoff preview. Well, it's not. Today we are talking about the master plan for this series, similar to the one that I did in the Timberwolves MyGm series. We are at the end of the season, and the team is just short of 50 wins. The Bradley Beal trade proved to be very fruitful, as the team as a whole got better, but adding Beal made us a legitimately good team, and looking to the future for this team, we have a decent amount of cap space for the upcoming free agency. In fact, we are pretty close to having one max spot. I gave Collins an extension, he took a surprisingly cheap deal, and outside of Beal and Capella, there aren't any huge deals on this team, and Capella's deal isn't even that big. The only issue with our salary is Dwayne Dedmon. He is good, but he also makes $13 million a year, which I'd say is a bit of an overpay for a backup center, so he is the odd man out. Luckily, he has a team option in his contract, which means we will be able to free up enough cap space for a max slot, and maybe even enough to sign another guy as well. Now, as for who will be available, well, the 2021 free agency class is well known to be very stacked. LeBron, Kawhi, Paul George, Blake Griffin, Giannis, Rudy Gobert, LaMarcus Aldridge, Victor Oladipo, Gordon Hayward, Mike Conley, and Drew Holiday. This is potentially the most stacked free agency class ever. Now, of this pool of players, there are a few we either can't get or don't need. Oladipo can't really play the 3, and we obviously don't need another guard. Mike Conley and Drew Holiday are also guards, and Mike Conley currently sucks. Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge are too old. LeBron is also old, but we aren't getting LeBron even if we wanted him, which we do, but that's not happening. So that's another name that we can eliminate. Rudy Gobert is a center, so I'm not that interested. He would help the defense, and we would have to trade Capella, but I'd rather land a scoring threat and just keep Capella as a cheaper option. So that leaves Kawhi, Paul George, Giannis, and Gordon Hayward. Gordon is the clear fourth guy here. He probably wouldn't even ask for a max, and I definitely wouldn't give him one, and he would still be a good player for us. The guy was averaging 18 on great splits with Boston this season before the league was shut down, and he is still really good, but if we walked away with Hayward with a max slot and a good team in this free agency, I'd be pretty disappointed. Now, as for who of these three we're most likely to land, well, I think it really comes down to how successful their teams are in the upcoming playoffs. In simulation, the Raptors won the championship in 2020, not the Bucks or Clippers. If either one win the championship this year, I think it takes whichever one off of the board, because they would have no reason to not re-sign, but that essentially means we will either have just Giannis, just Kawhi or Paul George, or all three as options, with Gordon Hayward being the very poor man's option. Now, as for why I think this team would attract these guys, well, this is a pretty deep, well-rounded team with a shit ton of spacing. I think all three of these guys value modern basketball, especially Giannis, so the shooting of this team should be attractive. The fact that we have 2 all-stars should be attractive. The fact that we have 5 above-average starters and a deep bench should be attractive. The fact that we are in a decent-sized market should be attractive. Atlanta is a dope city, so I think this team is a legit threat to land one of these three guys, and at that point, we become contenders, because right now, I think we are good enough to get to even a conference finals if the cards are played right. Just add a top 10 player to that, and it's no question that this team could win a championship. Now, as for who among these guys I want the most, Kawhi has to be number one for one simple reason, and that is that if we sign Giannis, we have to trade either John Collins or Clint Capella, because I don't want to play Giannis at the 3. I think he is the best at the 4, and who I would trade would be a tough decision because of the two very different but also very vital things that these two bring. Collins is a better scorer that can shoot from outside, but he is small for a center and isn't the defender that Capella is, and Capella has the size of a center, is good protecting the rim, but he can't space the floor, and with a guy like Giannis, it's best to avoid playing him with non-shooters. It's not going to be an easy decision, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. For Kawhi, he would not force me to trade for a player. In fact, he would improve the overall depth, because this would mean Grant is now coming off of the bench, which I would hate to do with him, but I also paid him $5 million more a year than he asked for in free agency, so I think he'll get over it. And also, for just pure shot creation, Kawhi beats Giannis. His ability to force a mid-range shot and make it is unmatched, but I think offensive fit-wise, Giannis can play off of Beal, and Young more than Kawhi can play off of them, because what Beal and Trey do on offense is basically the same thing Kawhi does, except they pass and shoot a little bit more, but they're obviously not as good overall offensively. But then for Paul George, he would be a flawless fit as another shooter, better shot creator than Giannis, but there's a reason I mentioned him last. He is obviously the third best player here. He barely cracks the top 10 players in the league, while I have Kawhi and Giannis as my top 2 players in the league, so I'd much rather get one of those two, but I also wouldn't complain about George. Also, it should be said all 3 of these guys are phenomenal defenders, but I think Giannis being able to defend 1 through 5 would be the most impactful, because this team needs the versatility more than anything defensively. Because Collins is too slow on the perimeter, Capella is even worse defending the perimeter, Trey Young is small as hell and overall bad defensively even for people his size, Bradley Beal isn't that big either and he's mediocre defensively, and Grant is perfect but he also can't really defend 5s. So Giannis would clean up the lack of defensive versatility quite a bit. So that's what I'm trying to do with free agency. I should have like $4 million left over to spend, might even make it more with a trade depending on what I'm feeling, and with that $4 million I'm going to try and sign a power forward who can both defend and shoot, because Mo Harkless can only do one of those things. And then draft wise, I'm pretty sure we don't have our pick, so yeah. Next video will be an end of season summary and a playoff preview, unless I am forgetting something again. I guess we'll see in the next episode.